Good afternoon. I am your host, Alex Daniels, for this week's edition of Purchase Broadcast Studios. Today we're talking about the campus production based on the events from May 2024's encampment and protest fighting for the freedom of Palestine and from the starvation and suffering called Dictatenure, a purchase tragedy. For audiences who don't know about the events that occurred involving 150 students participating while 70 were arrested and charged with suspensions, disrupting quiet hours during finals week at Purchase College. Producing a historical play takes 5 steps such as first drafts, revisions, editing the script with accurate details of the tragic night, and directing the cast and crew before it's being showcased on Friday, May 2nd at 7:30 p.m. at the CMFT building. The motivation and inspiration for Dictatenure came from a student's perspective behind the horrific events that took place at the quad of SUNY Purchase, including the unacceptable actions made by our school president Milagros Pena, Vice President Patricia Bice, and most of the university police department being forceful. Today we're talking to Kat Tobits, creating the project, and senior Elias-Rojas will tell our viewers about the actual events behind the production. Kat, Elias, welcome.
Hi, happy to be here.
All right, I guess starting with you, Kat. How did this whole crazy idea for Dictatenure? How did you come up with that?
Yeah, so I didn't come up with it. We had a playwright, and his name was Jan Marco. And so he approached me over this past winter break, and he said, like, hey, I have this play that's a satire about the administration's response to the encampment. I heard you were director. Do you want to direct it? And so I was like, okay, well, just send me the script and I'll let you know. And I read it and I was like, oh my God, this is hilarious. I love it. I think it's like such a like critical, biting satire that like balances like the critique of the school also with humor. And so I said, yeah, like absolutely, I would love to direct this. And so we had rehearsals and production meetings all throughout the semester to culminate to May 1st, May 2nd, and May 3rd, which is when the show went up. So yeah.
How specifically did you get the cast for the show in mind?
Yeah, so we didn't really have anyone specific in mind for any of the characters. When we came back for the very top of the spring semester, I met with Jan and talked to him about putting up the production and said, okay, well, we got to cast it immediately so that we can do the production. It is a one-act play, so it was about like an hour 15 minutes, which isn't too bad. And so we held open casting call auditions, posted to everyone on our Instagrams. We put up these posters, and a whole bunch of people auditioned. And then from there, we just, chose who we thought was best for the characters, and then just kind of went from there. So yeah.
The play about our school president is the idea behind it is very controversial.
Sure is.
I must say. Were you ever scared of what the high ups, maybe like Mila, like or Millie, or like any of the other high ups, I guess, scared or something?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't necessarily scared. I was a little bit nervous because I knew that even if people didn't know exactly what the show was about, through our messaging and through our marketing for it, it was very clear that it is a satire about Millie Pena and about the rest of the administration as well as UPD. So I was a little bit nervous, but overall I wasn't really scared, mostly just because I was there on May 2nd. I was arrested on May 2nd, and that's kind of like the worst that they could do. I was having some not issues, but I was having some like thoughts about like, okay, what's the legality of this? Does this count as defamation? Is it like that whole thing? And I contacted a professor of mine who knows a lot about arts and entertainment law, and she had said like, oh, it's a satire. Clearly, like you should be okay. Like legally, they can't retaliate for this play. It's not a overt form of. I mean, it is a form of protest, but it wasn't like a rah rah hold signs type protest. I was expecting to get some backlash from the administration, but fortunately from the administration themselves, we haven't heard anything from that. We did have backlash from other people, though, if you want me to talk about that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so basically close to the show opening, I know that there was some alumni who were there at the encampment who had some things to say about whether or not the satire was respectful to those who were part of the encampment. I hadn't really heard a lot of that because a lot of it was kind of contained in an area that I'm not really a part of anymore. But I was hearing some backlash from on Yik Yak and like all those kind of platforms about that. But I just sort of like ignored it. Like if they wanted to come and talk to me about it and like wanted to know more about what the play was about, then I'd be more than willing to have the conversation. So there's a little bit of backlash on the alumni side mostly. And then very close to opening during our first week of tech, the director of the conservatory gave me a call and was like, well, I'm not sure if you guys would be able to do this in this space because it is alumni weekend, and she was worried about the optics of having a critical satire about the school in a theater space during alumni weekend. But luckily there was some key faculty from the theater and performance department that talked to her about it, and everything ended up being okay. We did lose a whole day of tech, so we like had to stay late most days right up until opening. Like we were still working through stuff, and then suddenly we opened, and the response was fantastic after that. Like I saw, like after people went to see Thursday night, the first day performance, ticket sales went up like that. Which is amazing, and I'm like, oh my god, people actually like it and I want to come see it. I wasn't there all nights, but I heard that on Saturday they had to put more seats in the audience because so many people wanted to see it. And I don't know, it just goes to show that even though like, you know, there is some backlash, there is some controversy around it, I think that's part of like the fun of satire, that it's kind of supposed to be controversial and it's supposed to be kind of messy and raw and not like, you know, we're not gonna, you know, sunshine and rainbows and pretend everything's okay. And I think that's part of like the impact of doing the play. So yeah.
Well, I guess if you don't mind me asking, if you're comfortable with it, what was it like? What was it like being there at the protest, getting arrested, and how much of that impacted your directing style for Dictatenure?
Yeah. So on May 2nd, I was part of the 70+ students and protesters who were arrested. We were arrested a little bit after 10 p.m. on that night. I was taken to the White Plains precinct, and I stayed there around like 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, I mean, so it is a little bit difficult to talk about it because in the moment it wasn't anything that was like harmful or traumatic. I fortunately was not injured, but it was just one of those things that like you kind of look at it and you're like, this whole thing is so ridiculous. Like they called 6 precincts to come to the school to arrest peaceful protesters. Like we were quiet, we weren't disturbing anyone. We were out on the quad. The loudest things there were the police helicopter and the drones that were there. So the whole thing, like in of itself, is kind of satirical. Like it's just ridiculous the amount of like state violence that was like sent down on us. So it just seemed to me that the only appropriate response was to do a satire about it. So yeah, I mean, I didn't come up with the idea for the play, but once I had like heard about it, I was like, yes, absolutely, I want to do this. I wanted to inject my own experience into it. A lot of the cast, some were there, some are freshmen, so they didn't experience any of that. But through the dramaturgy and through like talking to the cast and explaining what had happened that night and the administration's response, they were like, oh yeah, fuck this shit. Like we're gonna totally do this play, and that also impacted some of the elements of the play itself. At the very end, there's a banner that the whole cast holds that says, "Where were you on May 2nd?" And while the play itself doesn't directly reference the encampment and the UPD's response to it, it kind of does tie it back into like this is what this play is about and this is what we should be focusing on. Yeah.
What about you, Elias, as an outsider of the play production, I guess? What was an outsider's perspective like, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I gotta say, witnessing this horrifying event, I mean, there were students out there who were trying to do a peaceful protest, who want society to realize that what they're doing is a mistake and they should stop doing the type of events to people in Palestine. And what we're not trying, they're not trying to cause a riot, burn everything to the ground. All they want is peace. They just want a message to them to like stop this madness. Until the UPD happens, they just want them to disperse. They will not listen because they will not leave until they will have those rights to those people. But when I see all the crowd of police with the riots and on their shields and the helicopters, the drones, it felt like this is not going to stop. Like this is going to be turning to a madhouse around SUNY Purchase. Like it's not only scared me, this scares a lot of people, including like parents to those students. Like they were upset. They could have been upset of witnessing this tragic event. And but watching this, I was lucky to be like in the back area of the protests. I was supporting people no matter what. But when they charged in, I was like running away from this madness, so that way I wouldn't get arrested. And I got here safely, while I hear people screaming, hurting, brutally broken, from the police putting them down and putting those trucks so that way they could be arrested.
Yeah, there was a lot of people. There was a few people who had to go to the hospital with injuries, concussions, people with disabilities, people who had chronic health conditions that were triggered by the arrests. Yeah, no, I remember like hearing that, like the screaming, and I was like, oh my God, this is like when I try to watch footage from that, I'm like, I physically can't, because I'm like, it's like reliving that. I mean, they didn't even tell me where I was going precinct-wise. They just kind of like put me in a van, and then I had overheard the police officers saying that this van's going to White Plains, and that's how I found out where they were taking us. And so I was like yelling to my friend, I'm like, they're taking us to White Plains, because like they didn't know where they were taking us. It was crazy. It was like basically kidnapping. Yeah.
The helicopters too. It was just kind of a crazy experience, being like, oh wow, this is pretty nutty going on right now. But I guess, do you guys have any final thoughts before we wrap up at all?
Well, all I can say that those university police departments and those police departments that are either those 6 departments that are either in White Plains or whatever, they violate those rights. They violate those rights that we should have. They do not understand our situation, our feelings, our message that we're trying to bring up to the people, and that's upset. That sets everyone on not only on campus, but everyone either in the city or either in the state or around the world. We as humans should really be focused on not just this or like this following rules situation. We should be focusing on helping those on our different race, so it's different culture, different gender, or whatever. We as people should follow those rights. We as a society in Purchase should protest of what we feel, and if they do not like it, I would say they will go fuck themselves.
Go fuck themselves. I mean, as traumatic as May 2nd was, like, I never want to forget why we did it. And it was for the people in Palestine that are currently, still to this day, experiencing a genocide in the hands of Israel. And it's, like, as traumatic as May 2nd was, like, it does not compare to the atrocities that are happening over there. And I just want to bring that back to that yes, this was bad and this was terrible and that should be dealt with in itself. But even with doing Dictatenure and having things in the playbill and like consistently talking about Palestine, and talking about all genocides worldwide, and I don't know, there's just so much happening in the world right now that is like all interconnected. Trump being elected, fascism is on the rise, like things are really, really looking terrible. But I believe that all of our struggles are interconnected, and that like none of us are free until all of us are free. And that goes for Palestine, that goes for student protesters, that goes for anyone who's living under oppression.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, I agree.
All right, I think that's all the time we have for us today. I've been your host, Alex Daniels. You guys want to play yourselves out to anything?
Yeah, hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I'm Kat Tobits, I'm a theater director at SUNY Purchase. I'm a senior, so I'm graduating, so.
Yep, Elias-Rojas.
All right, well, this has been Alex Daniels at Purchase Broadcast Studios. Good night.